We would like to welcome our speaker, Shweta Sharma, who is QA professional with over 12 years of experience in Agile environment. At Axelerant, she leads the entire QA team and her work responsibilities involve onboarding new joiners, training them in Drupal admin interface. Today, she'll be speaking on advanced automated visual testing. To know more about Shweta, here is the link, which I'll be posting in a short while. We welcome Shweta. Over to you. Thank you.
Let me just present. Let me know when you can see my slides in present mode.
Yes, we can see your slide.
Okay, fantastic. So hello everybody. I think I've already been given a wonderful introduction. And so today's session is going to be about advanced automated visual regression testing. So let's proceed. And feel free to connect with me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and yeah, you can also visit my GitHub repositories and just try it on, on yourself. In fact, try it by yourself. And I work as the director of QA services at Exhilarate Technologies, and I have been associated with Exhilarate for over 6 years now. And I'm located in Pune. So quickly talking about Exhilarate, we are a fully distributed agency. We always work from home, or you could say cafes, or even beach, right? Even before the pandemic, right from its inception, we've always worked from home. And we are primarily a Drupal agency, but we have services in various departments, like we have QA services, we have DevOps, we have front end, and we've been in the industry for over 10 years. We are 120 plus enthusiastic, kind and open professionals, which also happen to be our 3 core values. And we strongly believe in giving back to the community. Our team contributes to open source, mainly Drupal, and we also present at events like these. There are a lot of blogs written by my team members, so we strongly believe in sharing knowledge consistently with the entire community. This is going to be what I'm going to be talking about for the next 30 minutes, so I would just request you to skim through the agenda for the next 5 seconds, please. Okay. I do remember that there was a workshop conducted on visual testing, automated visuals testing yesterday. I am not sure if you attended that, but I'll still give you the basics of it. So what is visual testing, right? What do you do in visual testing? You verify that the look and feel and the user interface is works correctly or works as expected as per your style guide or as per the specifications, right? And what do you validate in that? You validate that the visual content is correct. You validate that the page layout is as expected. And you certainly validate the UI on various viewports, right? Because yeah, people have gone mobile. Everybody wants to access the web application through their mobile devices. So you definitely need to verify that on your mobile devices. So when you add the term automated, it means that you're just going to automate the verification of this particular task. So let's understand how the basic algorithm works for all tools that are available in the market. Once the test runner is initiated, on the first run, what's going to happen is that these tools, they capture baseline images, right, for whatever pages that you've configured. So for example, a home page or a landing page, right, whatever you've configured in your tests, it's going to capture baseline images for those pages, which means it's going to just, generate a snapshot of that page, which is also named as the reference image. And on further runs, on subsequent runs, it's going to capture screenshots again at runtime, and it's going to compare it with the baseline image that was previously generated on the first run. Now, after the test is run, there are going to be 2 outcomes. Either your test is going to pass or it's going to fail, and it's going to report differences. So what happens when the test fails and report differences? There would be two reasons. Either it was unintended, which means it's a bug. But if the difference that was reported was intended, which means that it was a change that was introduced in the UI, which means that you have to go back and update your baseline image so that the comparison happens with the correct reference image next time. For this particular presentation, I'm going to be talking in an incremental fashion. So I'm going to be talking on various levels that, as a beginner, how you could get started with automating visual tests in your organization or in your project. And further, we're going to have level 2 and level 3 as well. So for level 1, I'm going to be using this website, which is Urban Hipster, and it's built using Drupal Commerce. And here you see the category listing page for women, right? So at level 1, what are we trying to achieve, right? So let's understand what are we trying to achieve here. Assume that your site development is either in progress or it's in maintenance. And here your objective really is to optimize the testing efforts as an individual, purely. Yeah, you are just fed up of verifying the UI on several browsers and several devices. So you just want to optimize your testing efforts so that you can spend your time cleverly somewhere else. And we'll also look at challenges that you would face at an individual level and what we can do to resolve those challenges. So that's going to be the pattern for all 3 levels that I've covered. So this is a very basic test using a tool named Backstop.js, which is a config-based tool, which means you really need not write any code. And this is the backstop.json file where I have configured a simple test. Here, this is an element level test. What it means is that you can capture screenshots of the entire page, or you could capture screenshots of individual elements as well if your site is still in development. For example, you could capture screenshots of the header or the footer independently, right? When the site is still in development. And here you see that we've configured 3 viewports for desktop, for phone, and tablet. Simple till now. I think you're all with me. And in the next test, what I've done is I have, captured a test for women's category listing page by just mentioning the URL of that particular page. Yeah, so using the command backstop reference, what we are going to be doing is, as you can see in this GIF, that we'll be generating the reference images or the baseline images, as I mentioned, right? So once these reference images are created, you can see in this GIF that the reference images will be created using backstop reference. And yeah, so these are the reference images that got created using the command backstop reference for desktop, for phone, and tablet for both the tests that we configured. One is the category listing page and the other is the header, as you see here. This one's the header, just the header element. Now that we have the tests, we have the reference images configured, let's go ahead and run our test using the command backstop test. What it's going to do is it's going to again capture screenshots at runtime, which it is doing currently. And it's going to give you a report saying whether your test passed or failed. As you can see, it ran the compare method. And here you can see that all 6 tests have passed for the header element and for the women's category listing page, both. The reference image that we captured using backstop reference, so the test actually compared it to the reference image that was created. And it gave a pass and fail report accordingly. That brings us to the first challenge now, right? The test looked flawless in the demo, right? But that doesn't really happen in your real project. So let's talk about the first challenge that you might potentially face depending on what sort of project you're working on. What does dynamic content mean? You would often have web applications that have some dynamic elements like the slideshow, right? Or these ad blocks that you're seeing. which keep changing, right? That's because that's how they are featured to be. How do we, and your tests are going to fail just because there was a dynamic element on your web application. So let's see how you can handle such a challenge. I'm going to quickly demo the dynamic content challenge as well. So to demo, I have taken the same application. It's just that I have captured the screen, the slideshow of the homepage, and we'll see that quickly. Here you can see that the slideshow is actually highlighted in pink, which means that the tool is showing out some differences, that there is some problem with the UI. But if you actually see, the reference image had a different slideshow image, whereas the test had a different slideshow image. So was this test really supposed to fail? Not really, right? Just because you had two different slideshow images, there was absolutely no flaw or bug as such in the UI. And you would be soon irritated with such false positives, right? So let's see how you can go ahead and resolve such challenges. Yeah, so you see that the diff got generated for tablet, phone, everywhere, right? The same diff. So Backstop.js, has this scrubber feature as well, where you can just slide through the image and identify, what was the bug. So you can see the reference image, you can see the test image, and that helps you just identify, where the UI issue was really. Yeah, so that brings us to the resolution. So almost all tools that are available in the market are going to help you resolve this challenge by using the hide selector and the remove selector strategy. So what we are going to do here is, let me just move to the next slide. Yeah, here if you see, I'm going to hide the homepage carousel slide from being captured in the screenshot completely, right? Because it's not going to affect the layout of the page. So you have to be careful that you do not interchange these strategies. So remove selectors can be used for sticky popover chats, where you can just remove that popover chat from every page before you capture the screenshot. Whereas hide selector, it's just going to fill up that particular space. It's just going to mask it with a black spot, but the layout of your page is not going to change here. So just be careful that when you use the hide and the remove selector strategy. So if you see, after I've hidden the homepage carousel slide here under hide selector, so if you observe, this takes in an array, which means you can specify multiple selectors here. This is how your new reference image is going to look like, right? The slideshow you see is completely masked with a black color, which means it's no more going to interfere with your visual testing results. Similarly, there was a flickering beacon icon here everywhere, like everywhere on the page, which was just it just had a flickering image, and that was interfering with our testing results as well. So what I've done is I have mentioned the selector for that beacon marker in the remove selectors array, which is going to remove it. And after removing it, this is how your screenshot reference image is going to look like. Now, after we have captured the new reference images, after implementing the hide and remove strategy, we are going to rerun the test again. And now let's see what happens. Fantastic. You see all 6 tests have passed here. Your header is not failing because of the flickering beacon marker. And you see that your slideshow test is not failing as well. Your homepage test is not failing as well, because in the reference image and in the test image, the slideshow is no more the dynamic factor. Okay. So that brings us to tools that you can that would help you to get started in open source. So these are not like, this is not an exhaustive list by any means, right? These are just some of the tools that I have tried hands-on. In open source, you can certainly try Backstop.js, Rate, Spectre. These are mainly config-based tools, which means you need not really write a single line of code. Talking about commercial tools, there's this aptly tools side browser extension, which acts as a plugin with the Selenium IDE, record and playback, or a codeless solution really. There's Percy, there's Diffy. I have tried all of these and they work really well. That brings us to level 2 now, right? Now once you've created these tests locally or as an individual tester, you would certainly want to try the next level, right? So let's understand what are the objectives at level 2 that we are trying to achieve, right? Involve more than one individual so that more people benefit from automation. Certainly, that's what the next level would be. But what's the challenge there? Baseline images that are created from one machine fail on others due to anti-aliasing. Just to simply put it in layman terms, if you are having a MacBook and someone else is having, say, probably an Ubuntu machine or a Windows machine, right? Anti-aliasing would come into picture just because the hardware configuration of these machines is different and there would be pixelated differences reported. The second objective is that you would now like to simulate user actions as well, like filling up forms, clicking, hovering, and then again, after submitting the form, you would want to ensure that the confirmation page is intact as well when it comes to UI. So what would be the challenge here, right? You would want to look for tools that would seamlessly integrate with your existing automated testing frameworks, right? Nobody wants to, that's the last suggestion you want to hear, that, throw away your existing automated functional suite and take this tool because this is a silver bullet. That's not the case. You would look for seamless integration with the tools. The third objective is that you would want to optimize testing efforts for a small development testing team, right? So in that case, you would look for harmonious integration with your CI setup, existing CI setup. So that brings us to discussing the resolution for level 2 challenges that we just spoke of. Anti-aliasing can be solved in several ways. These are just few ways that I would like to discuss. You can certainly use a container, a Docker, wherein you can ensure that the environment is the same every time, irrespective of the machine it is run on. You can execute your visual tests on cloud. Certainly, this is not a cheap solution. You would need subscription licenses to the various cloud solutions that you see here. Integration with testing frameworks. There are many open source and commercial tools available that would provide the solution depending on your existing testing framework, the language, the tool that you use, right? You can choose out of them. Integration with the CI setup. Again, there are many commercial tools available that would provide out of the box integration with your CI setup. The tools available in level 2 category would be, if you are using Cypress, well, there's a good news for you. There are many visual testing plugins available, made available by the Cypress community for the community. And talking about commercial tools, aptly tools and Percy would help you to achieve objectives that we discussed at level 2. So for the level 2, the example that I've taken here is a contact us page wherein I want to ensure that after filling in the form, I want to verify that the UI is correct. And after clicking the send message, I also want to check that the confirmation page looks good. And I certainly want to check the overall contact us page, including the map here. So I have written a test using Cypress and Percy here. So Percy is the commercial tool that I've used here. And if you would see, I just have written 2 lines of code here, which is like at line number 7 and line number 9. And that's it. It's going to capture the screenshot. It's going to run the test on the bits, various viewports that I have defined here. Of course, this can be defined at the global level as well. Right, I'm just going to fill up the form here, submit it, and verify that it looks good before submitting and after submitting. So this is the Percy dashboard that you're seeing in the video here. Since we had configured for 320, 1024 and 1400 pixels, our snapshot is captured for both, for all these viewports. And as I mentioned, after the form was submitted and before the form was submitted. And since this is the first snapshot, right, the reference image, it says that it's a new snapshot. And as you can see, Percy also supports by default checking the UI on Chrome and Firefox. Okay, now that we have created the baseline images, let's see how we can go ahead and approve the baseline images. It's really simple, you know. Some person has to go and verify that the baseline image is correct, right? So that cannot be automated, shouldn't be automated, right? And once someone verifies that, you know, the baseline image is indeed correct, just go and hit this approve button. You can, you know, either individually approve the images or you can approve it in bulk by saying approve all. Right. So let's see how Percy supports visual testing in CI, right? So here what I've done is I've created a feature branch named Contact Us, right? And I have intentionally introduced a bug here, right? So here the tool highlights it in red, pink, yeah, it just highlights it in this color, and it's going to capture and compare it with the master branch, because that's how we've configured Percy to react in, you know, it needs to compare the images what are stored in the master branch, because these are the approved images. Right, so you can see the diff, you can see the original, and you can see the new. You can see that, you know, I had intentionally just deleted this map from here. Now, what you're going to do is you're just, you know, it also provides collaboration with your team members. As you can see, I have just mentioned that the map is missing from your feature branch. You know, there's some bug that you've introduced, and I'm not going to approve as the tech lead, team lead, whatever, whosoever is responsible. I'm going to say that you'll have, and I'm going to say, you know, changes needed, right? So I'm going to request changes so that the person is aware that they have introduced a bug in their feature branch, which means the screenshot doesn't get approved and merged in the master. Quickly, that brings us to level 3. And yeah, so the level 3, you would see, it's interesting, you know, how after level 2, you are not going to talk about objectives, but you're going to talk about challenges first that you have faced. And that's going to automatically turn into objectives. Now, in level 3, you would run into a challenge of running into false positives when the number of screenshots go on increasing in your project. You know, that repository becomes bigger and bigger. What's the cause for it? Whenever there are browser updates, you know, you might expect those small horizontal shifts. And since, you know, these are all pixel to pixel based matching apart from aptly tools, right? You know, what's going to happen is that your, you know, your test is just going to scream just because of that one pixel difference. So here the objective is going to be that you want to avoid that pixel to pixel based matching, right? You want to look for a smarter algorithm. The second challenge is increased time to test on several browsers and devices. Here what happens is, you know, depending on what tool and what configuration you have done, the execution is going to happen on all configured browsers and devices, right? Which means the time is going to increase, right? We are not comparing the time, you know, it would take for a person to execute it against the machine. No, we are just talking about how we can optimize within automation now, right? Our objective here is certainly that, you know, you would want better test coverage across browsers and devices, and hence you have configured it, right? But then you want to happen at a faster pace now, right? It's just about being better than before. We know when an option is available, why not take it? The third challenge is there are frequent and major changes in elements. Just, you know, for example, you know, there is an element brought in to the header when the project is almost about to release. Imagine you'll have to just scratch and scrap off all your previous baseline images just because the header element was changed, which means all your tests are going to fail if the reference images are not changed, right? So you want better baseline management. Talking about scattered tests and poor readability. Here, the cause is inability to group. This is certainly, you know, something that the tool needs to provide, or you'll have to sit and write a lot of code. You'll have to create that feature for your organization, for your project, right? You want better test suite management. Tools available. Unfortunately, there are no open source tools available that are going to help you with the challenges that we've discussed at level 3. Commercial tools, talking about aptly tools, would solve all the challenges that we discussed on the level 3 slide. Percy also comes to your rescue to a certain extent. So let's the resolution for false positives. Let's see how Percy solves it. Right? It is programmed to ignore the 1 pixel difference, right? So after browser updates, if there are going to be a 1 pixel vertical shift, it's going to ignore it, and you need not really update any baselines or something. Aptly Tools has 2 matching algorithms. One is the exact matching algorithm, and the other uses more AI-based comparison algorithm, which is going to get rid of false positives just because of minor pixelated differences. Okay, talking about scattered tests here, right? What's the resolution? Talking about the several browsers and devices that we saw that, the test executes on several browsers and devices. Aptly Tools provides a solution through ultra-fast cloud, wherein you can configure easily the number of browsers and the devices that you want your test to run on. The test executes only once on the Chrome browser, and the screenshot capturing or the test actually gets in background gets captured on various browsers and devices that you have configured, which means the test does not get executed on all those browsers and devices, right? So you really save a lot of time there. And if you see, they provide also one more feature named batches here. And I have named the batch as Umami Drupal sites. You can always, and you can see that I have named this test over here as article landing page in English language. Similarly, I have recipe landing page in English language. All the tests relevant to that, I don't want separate lines of tests just because it was a different browser. You would want all the relevant and related tests to be captured in the same test in a batch, right? So this batch could be your project name. It could be a feature as well. So for example, you could always rename this batch as homepage as well. So you can, that way it gives you better picture of how you could group your visual tests as well. Talking about Percy, as we saw, it supports Chrome and Firefox, and it supports only viewports, but it's still better, and it's a cheaper solution, by the way. This is a comparison slide that I have kept between Percy and Aptly Tools, and there are various parameters I have discussed. I would really request you to go through this, after the presentation, and feel free to reach out to me if you are not clear on any of the parameters, because I think we might be short on time. So I'll just skip these 2 slides, and you can take a look at this later. Now what, you are now flooded with information. This is what really, I am trying to say in this GIF, is that now that you're flooded with information, you should also be focusing on the testing strategy when it comes to automated visual tests, right? Capturing screenshots, right? Element level, like we saw the header, that was an element level example, right? When would you capture element level screenshots? If you're using a component-based library like Storybook or Pattern Lab, then it makes sense to capture screenshots at element level and run tests accordingly. Or when your development is in progress, right? When, say, if you're still planning to build a homepage or the entire web application, you would first have tests only for header, only for the footer, and certain blocks. And you would have full page screenshots only when all these components, these elements are combined and slapped into one page. Yeah, when would you run full page tests, as we saw the women's category listing page? So let's say that you have a production environment already, and after every deployment, you want to be sure that the UI is intact. You can certainly, using all the tools, you can compare both the environments for your visual tests. Plan the level of visual coverage needed, right, for both browsers and devices. The need for every project is different, and as our customers are different. I have worked on a project wherein their browser and mobile need was really different from the regular customers. So you should be clever and smart enough to identify the need of their customer base and target only those browsers and devices. Identify patterns from previously learned lessons. So for example, if you have seen a tendency or if a trend of the forms breaking up only on IE11, which is anyway going to go away, say Edge, right? So just don't have tests, the contact us or the form test on all browsers. No, that's not needed. You can just have that test pertaining to IE11. Application wide, don't capture all pages. I have worked on web applications which have like in hundreds of pages, right? These first of all, the commercial tools are going to charge you for your number of screenshots, so you have to be very clever in having those impactful tests, those important pages in your test. If you're using a commercial tool, even if you're using an open source tool, remember that you are the one who needs to maintain those baseline images, right? If any change, you are going to have to maintain or modify those baseline images. Identify appropriate samples. That is so applicable. We often work on web applications where there are thousands of articles on that web application. Does really every article be captured? Not really needed. Identify appropriate samples and pick up only those articles which vary in layout. The good practices that to follow are organize your test suites, right? Browser wise, feature wise, device wise. I'll quickly explain that with an example, with a screenshot. Speed up your test execution by running the tests in parallel, and identify the frequency to run your visual tests, right? Not all the visual tests need to be run on every day, right? Or on every PR. That really depends also on what phase you are in your project development, right? During the development, probably every PR makes sense. But once it's stable, probably a nightly run is enough. And once it's out in production, probably only on every deployment, you would need these visual tests to run. So identify the frequency and modify it as you progress within the phase. Yeah, so I was talking about organizing tests as per browser. Here you could see that the contact us page, this is an example using WebDriver IO. The contact us page has been very smartly listed under only IE, only 11, which means, and this is the configuration that I've used for Browser Stack and WebDriver IO, which means that the contact us test is going to run only on IE. And there are few specs, common specs, which run on all the configured browsers and devices. Creating suites is again something I recommend. So for example, if you have a blog related feature and if there are some changes happened only to that feature, you need not run all the automated visual tests, right? You can run only the smoke ones. Probably not even that. You can just run the blog related features or the blog related specs to identify any defects if there are. And the key results that we've achieved at Exhilarate quickly. At Axelerant, what we do is we use containerized database, which means we ensure that the test data is persistent, is consistent, and is the same every time before we run the visual tests. And that's what, so what I'm trying to say is just that, we keep the test data generation out from our test automation scripts so that our scripts run faster and they give a quick feedback. And yeah, seamless integration of automation tools involved. As I mentioned, you don't want to scrap off your existing functional suite, so you'll have to look for a tool that would seamlessly integrate with your existing functional suite, with your CI/CD pipeline and everything. So we've done that. And while creating the data, we ensure that the visual tests are created as a replica of the wireframes that are provided through Zeppelin InVision to test as close as possible to the end page or how it's going to look like to the client. Less number of assertions required for the acceptance test automation suite. Okay. So, you saw the contact.
Sorry to interrupt you. You have two minutes to wind up probably.
Yeah, that's it. Just 2 more minutes.
Yeah.
Almost
Good
done.
to know. Okay. Yeah.
So, what we are doing is in our recent projects, we are taking the the automation, the visual automation suite first approach, wherein we are focusing on capturing the visual space of the project, wherein automatically the functionality also obviously gets verified, which means that you need less number of acceptance test automation assertions, and which means faster test authoring in short. Now, this is an important slide that you all should really, keep your ears open. There are efforts needed to maintain baseline image. If at all if I have at all, painted a rosy picture, then this is an eye opener for you. There are efforts needed to maintain baseline images, right? And the entire team needs to do it. There needs to be a lot of collaboration. You have to respect the test pyramid. Again, this is not some silver bullet. There are advantages of writing unit tests, acceptance tests, and all of that, right? So those advantages, you just need to understand that you shouldn't get rid of them. Best practices in automating visual tests is ensure full page validation. Just verifying the element is, or the component is, not going to ensure that when they are slapped together, the page looks good as well. Do not have too many element specific tests, because those are captured using locators, and if the locators change, you're going to have a tough time. General rules for automating acceptance tests apply here to pick up the right candidates for automation, logical division of tests, usage of seams, and do not expect overnight success here. It's been more than 5 years we've been trying this at Exhilarate, and then we've reached this conclusion. Where to go from here? If you do not have any coding knowledge, then you can use config-based tools. You can pair up with developers, SDETs, to have the structure ready. Let them know, which are more meaningful tests, page tests to have. If you're good with coding, look for harmonious integration with your automated functional suite.
Overshoot the time.
Okay, yeah, I'm done. Yeah, so just bring these tests in your CI pipeline. Be brave if you're good with coding. And yeah, these are some useful references.
Thank you, Shweta. And we'll just take one question that you may want to pick without much elaboration.
Okay.
These are the questions that we have received.
Okay, so does visual testing tool have configuration to manage certain tolerance in baseline comparison? Yes, all visual testing tools have a mismatch threshold, and you'll have to identify the mismatch threshold that is appropriate for your website. Sometimes 0.5 works well, sometimes with 0.5, you might also miss out on actual bugs. So you need to identify the mismatch threshold for your application.
Great. Thank you so much, Shweta, for your time and delivering a wonderful session.